Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and tonight we're lucky to be joined by two co-hosts tonight. I've got Great Viney. Good evening, Great Viney. How are you?
I'm excellent, Andy. Thank you.
And we've also got Demonland poster Supermercado, otherwise known on Twitter as Adam 1.0. Adam, how you doing?
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's an honour to tread the same stage as some of the legends you've already had on.
Yes, in particular one that no one can seem to match that one.
I wasn't going to name specific people in deference to the rest of your guests, but of course we all know that Jacko was the big hit of all time. So I don't think I can top that, but we'll try.
It's the ace up the sleeve that we've got against the club. In our ongoing podcast war with them. So,
have you got like secret recordings that you didn't air that night that you can blackmail them with?
Yeah,
yes.
The blooper reel is something that we'll bring out at Christmas time, I think. Melbourne had their first podcast last week, their first official podcast, but I haven't seen any plugging of their second podcast. So. Did that come and go, or
did you listen to it? Because I thought I read online, as in on the board, that they actually discussed the whole camp business, which I thought was a strange move from the club to be doing it. I would have thought that they would want to have moved on from that.
Well, it is interesting.
Did you listen to it? I didn't hear it.
Personally, I didn't listen to it, but I know that one of the co-hosts is his name Tom Morris, who works for Fox.
Morris, I think.
Who works for Fox Footy, and actually, I think on one of the shows on the couch, or one of them discussed that and wrote an article on Fox Footy their webpage about it. About the he was the one that wrote that article about Goodwin offering his resignation.
I think that's the problem with official podcasts like that. You get these very good broadcasters in, and you get people who have got connections in, but it's really got to toe the party line. And I didn't hear it either, guys. But I think if they were covering a controversial topic, I'm not sure you're going to get that many insights into what actually happened.
No, I doubt they would have talked about the that part about it. That Goodwin in anger offered his resignation, and then that was sort of scoffed at by Peter Jackson, but I doubt they would talk about that on the official podcast.
It's a strange decision, as Adam said, that they're not going to cover the real news aspect of it. So why do it at all? It's just Anyway.
Well,
we push on.
We do. If you want to join us to talk about anything you want tonight, two ways you can do that. Three ways, actually. You can get on our live chat if you're listening live to this broadcast. Go to demonland.com/podcast. You can also call us 039016 3666. That's 039016 3666. Or you can find me on Skype, Demonland31, and I'll make sure my Skype is open so I can take your call if you do give us a call in. Do we need to talk any more about the Camp Fiasco? I know we touched on it last week, Great Viney, but Caro and a few other media organisations and people have brought it up on the eve of the season. I don't know what their motivations to rehash this all are, or whether it was because new information might have come to light. Was there a need to sort of bring this up now, or were they just finding a story at the start of the year?
I think it's reasonable to bring it up, and I didn't think that there was anything particularly wrong with Caro's piece, and I think it warranted reflection on what happened at the end of the pre-season, which is now, and heading into the real season, as opposed to 3 months ago when the story actually happened. So not that we necessarily know anymore, but I think we've been able to judge since then whether the club has gotten over it, and I think everybody would agree that it seems that we've moved on really quickly. I heard Jordan Lewis on AFL 360 last night, and he was interesting. He said that in the wake of what happened, they had a number of team meetings that he said were very honest and robust, and that the club had sort of come together and grown a lot as a result of those meetings. So it could well be that it turns out to be a positive rather than negative. And he said that there was a lot more substance to what had happened in the meetings than is sort of portrayed in the story that we got and the things that the media focus on.
I think that's often the case, that we sort of jump at shadows at these articles, especially with well-connected people like Caro. But I think the best way to put this to bed would be to go out and smash Geelong in the first quarter on Sunday. Obviously, that doesn't set up the full season, what happens then, but I would hate to think that if we're going to come out and have another first quarter like our last home and away game, that this will come up again. And I noticed even today, Wayne Carey jumping on the bandwagon as well and suggesting we're going to lose because we're not a united team, because of the camp, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's more just someone piling on for the sake of clicks and views rather than a properly looked at and researched article that comes from realistic sources.
Yeah, it wasn't actually an article, and it wasn't solely about that. It was one of those AFL.com videos where they were giving their tips, so they were quickly going through the games. I think it was a 12 or 15-minute segment, so they went through every game. So I really took issue with his comments because he based his tip of tipping Geelong, and I've got no problem with people tipping against us. I've done it many times myself, but he based it solely on that we're not a united team. He brought in no facts, didn't analyse the game or the players or this or that. He just based solely on that, and I think for someone who's in the journalism industry, I don't think that's good enough. But I don't expect much more from Wayne Carey.
Yeah, being lectured on teamwork by Wayne Carey is like being lectured on democracy by Vladimir Putin. I think we can just put that to one side and move on.
Yeah, I think so. We're heading into a new season, a new dawn. We've had many false dawns, but a new dawn is approaching. And you, Adam, know full well what it's like to have the last decade plus as cellar dwellers. You, of course, are the author of a book. Am I getting the title correct? Is it
The Great Depression.
The Depression. I was thinking despicable. How many D words could I use? The Great Depression. I think that's one of the few D-related headlines that's never actually been on the back of the paper. That's true.
I think most of the other ones, plus the classic "woe woeful," which got to run one day. So look, it's just a collection of my blog posts. So those listeners who don't know, I write for demonblog.com. I like to call myself the chief football writer of that enterprise, but I am literally the only football writer of that enterprise. So really, it was just going back through that sort of 10 years that we all know and love from the day Hawthorn went crazy in that NAB Cup game and sort of swapped positions with us. They started going forward and we started going backwards right through to the end of 2016. So very appropriately ended with a 120-point loss to Geelong. It was definitely an interesting process to go back and look at all the old posts again and sort of turn them into put some, what's the word I'm looking for, put some perspective on it. Because I think, for one thing, despite my reputation as a bit of a footballing miserablest, I actually, if you read through the posts as they're posted, there's always this sense of optimism there, like it's got to get better. It's got to get better. It's like Bart Simpson at Camp Krusty, like Krusty's coming, and he never does. So it's sort of going back and putting the perspective into the 10 years and sort of we thought this was going to happen and this happened. And look, it was interesting going back and looking through it. It was kind of funny that I was wrapping it up in those last few weeks of 2016 where we were putting in what I referred to as the Mighty Ducks finish, where we were, if everything fell our way, we could make the finals. And that's when I was wrapping it up, and I was thinking, geez, this is going to be an incredible ending to the book. And then obviously we threw it away against Carlton, and then got poleaxed by Geelong in the last round. So I was kind of, that's probably actually a better ending to the book. Not a better ending to the season, but a more appropriate ending to that sort of 10 years. But what it is, look, it's just for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's pretty much just every game, including pre-season games and including, those weird three-way NAB Cup games and everything for the decade, and just a look at what happened in those games. And it's really just capturing the weird stuff that's not going to get captured anywhere else. Like, you can look back in a newspaper report and find out what happened in the game, but, you're not going to get a report of the time Jack Watts was doing downward dog in the middle of the field to get his back into place on the day we won that first game at the Adelaide Oval, or the time the kid spewed on the wall at the MCG and the cleaner initially refused to clean it. And I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life, until I turned around and found out that the kid had actually been sitting in the row behind me when he'd started to feel ill. So it's really just capturing that kind of stuff. And there's probably a lot of things in there that people can relate to in, supporting Melbourne and the frustrations of, knowing it's got to happen one day. I guess from my perspective, there's probably a lot of your listeners who did get the tail end of the glory days, but I unfortunately had the misfortune of coming in at the 88 grand final. I grew up in Hawthorn, and I just hated Hawthorn. I was so sick. I hated the colours. I hated the fact that everyone went for them. And basically halfway through that season, I said, I'm going to get into footy. I was 7 years old, turned 7 just before the grand final, and I said, I will go for whoever Hawthorn plays in the grand final this year, knowing full well that someone would be versus Hawthorn. And then obviously the West Coast Eagles should have knocked us out in the elimination final. What's his name? Murray Renstead missed that absolute sitter in the last few seconds. So had that happened, we probably wouldn't be talking today. But then the D's made it and sat down as a 7-year-old kid in front of the TV. All right, this is the team I'm going to go for. And I think we all know what happened that day.
You refer to yourself as the great miserablest, which begs the question, what's going to happen to Fisted Forever once we start playing finals, and how will you cope with success?
I'm hoping to change it to Fisting Forever when we start rolling through everyone. I'm hoping to alter that now semi-famous hashtag that was derived from the First and Forever that we were running with, I think, in 2013. And that was the title of one of my posts. I think the day we lost to West Coast by about 90, after everyone gave a lovely standing ovation for the team for only being 10 down at half time, and we copped about 8 goals to none in the third quarter after that. As for success, I'm sort of struggling to even contemplate it at the moment. Like, obviously last year we did win more than we lost, but we all know how it ended in appropriately Melbourne fashion. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to break myself down and start again and learn to be a happy person. It might not do anything for the content of my page or the content of my Twitter account. People might get bored of it, but I'm certainly, for my own sanity, happy to start learning how to be a successful supporter.
Yeah, it's a lot more fun reading Demonland, certainly, when you're looking back during the dark years than it is when you're winning. I was going to say before, your book did end on a very Melbourne-like ending, so it did well then, rather than the fairy tale.
I'd like to think that they considered that with nothing to play for in the last round down to Geelong, and just stood back and went, well, what better place than Geelong, where I think I did the maths in the book at that point, and I'm about minus 500 in games in Geelong for the margin total in every game I've ever been to there. We won 1 by 1, and we won that one a couple of years ago by about 3 goals. Yeah. Then we lost a lot of others.
Were you at 186?
I was. Yeah. I stood on the steps behind the goals for the whole game, the entire game. I actually saw a guy I worked with at the time before the game who was a Geelong fan, and I saw him after the game, and he said later I was absolutely as white as a sheet after the game. But mind you, by the end, to be honest, and I probably have said this before, but I'm willing to admit it publicly. I almost was hoping that they would kick the extra goal and break the record, because it's not like we were taking on the record anyway. So it was kind of like, why not be here? Why not be here for the record? But I think 186 has just landed as a beautiful number. Like, it's just really, it's like I think I've said in the book and on the blog, it's like the title of a disaster movie. That's why I just italicize it everywhere now when I write it. It's just like the title of a, Towering Inferno or Poseidon Adventure style movie. But one of the other things that day, I remember half time, we were 114 points down, and the lady came up to me and she said, put her hand on my shoulder and she said, "I'm so sorry." And I just had to take it as sincere. Like, I know some people I've told that story to. They're like, "You should have told it at X, Y, Z," and how sarcastic's that? And I'm like, at the time, all I could do was just take it as being serious. And what people often forget is that in the curtain raiser, Casey lost by about 130.
Oh wow!
So I issued, and I think I tweeted it. So it's probably there somewhere. The immortal phrase of, "Well, at least it can't get any worse."
That phrase, "it can't get any worse," is the same phrase I utter every year when, invariably at the beginning of the year, I have my non-Melbourne supporters always come up to me, "Oh, how do you think the D's will do?" And I say, "Well, it can't get any worse." And a lot of the times it did, so...
And the scary thing is that this year it probably can.
Yes.
Like, for the first time since 2006 into 2007, it probably can get worse. I actually have some realistic faith. I think for the first time ever when I've been doing season previews, I've actually put us in the 8. If it backfires, don't blame me, because we all know weird things happen at Melbourne, so it can't all be pinned on me. Yeah. But I think last year I had us in a bracket. I had us 9th, but in a bracket 7th to 9th.
Yeah.
And I said something like, I think we're good enough to just miss the finals. So that was probably one of the best predictions I've made since I backed Shane Woden to win the Brownlow in 2000 for $5 at 200 to 1 before the start of the season.
Nice.
Yes. I was just went in the tab and it's like, I just want to bet on a Melbourne player, and it just happened to be. It was one of the finest Brownlow counts I've ever witnessed.
Nice. I have us in a quite a wider bracket. I have us anywhere between 1st and 18th, so I can't go wrong. So where can people find this book if people are depressed and want to be even more depressed, or feel that they're too happy?
It's all done in the best possible taste. So looking back, there's a few there's a few laughs here and there, and a look at the absurdity of it all, and great moments like, me losing the use of my legs for about 20 minutes after we beat Essendon that night in 2012.
Yes.
The first time I sat in the back row of the Ponsford stand and I couldn't actually walk down the steps for 20 minutes because I would have fallen down the steps. So it's not all entirely misery. It's just mostly misery. So you can pick it up. Look, you can pick it up off Amazon. But the best way to do it is to just either go to demonblog.com or demonwiki.org, and there's an image of the cover of the book on both those sites. I actually have got a few spare copies here now, and the details on how to get those are on the link that goes through to as well. So if anyone wants one with kooky nonsense written on the inside or wants it as a present for someone else, definitely feel free to get in touch. And it's also available on Kindle, which ebooks are like self-driving cars. They're a mystery to me, but people seem to like them.
It certainly does capture all those quirky aspects of football that go beyond the actual game. And I note that it's published, of course, by the great publishing house. Brunton Avenue will be closed for 20 minutes at the end of the match at the discretion of the police operational commander. I think that's a subsidiary of Penguin Books, isn't it?
Yeah, it was either that or something about the Basics Administration Office ground floor Olympic stand for baffling anybody born after about 1985.
But football is full of those quirky little things, isn't it? And the book is full of those kinds of moments too. So it is more than a memory of misery. Have a look at it. Plenty of laughs.
But it does have a running count of how many games since we last played finals. So just keep that in mind if you're suffering from fragility or something in your life, then you want to pick up the book for a bit of light reading. The count doesn't get particularly good by the end of the book.
Yeah. You mentioned Demonwiki a moment ago. Yeah. Most people would be familiar with it. Incredible resource and wealth of information there on the club's history. How much time do you spend maintaining and updating that? Because there's a lot there. Incredible stuff.
Yeah, it goes in waves. I actually probably didn't touch it much at all during the last footy season, and then in summer, obviously, to get the fill. I did a lot of research, and I've still got a lot of stuff stacked up in my queue to look at to add to that. Where it started was 2009. It's funny. There was an SEN quiz, and it was a question about Carlton, and I was trying to Google on my phone to cheat on it, and I found the site Blueseum, which some of your people might know, which is a Carlton wiki, and I pretty much just pinched their idea. But obviously I've been in touch with them, and they've been great about it. So it was to build off the idea of that. And really, it was just after getting all the games and all the players in there, it's more just been a case of going through any footy archives I can find to piece together things. I found a photo the other day in a newspaper of a player from 1919, someone I didn't have a photo of, and it gave me quite a rush. So it's a very nerdly procedure, and I'm not sure people probably know how much detail there is in the wiki because it's all buried deep inside. So it's one of those things where people say that they click one article. It's like Wikipedia. They click one article and they end up an hour later 20 articles deep in 50 years different to where they were. And it's also got a lot of, obviously it's got the stuff like pre-VFL. We've done a lot of work on that. There was a great series of books that's come out recently by an author called Mark Pennings, who really went into a lot of depth researching the VFA and the pre-VFA period. So that was very helpful. And of course now we've got the AFLW players, we've got all them on, we've got all their games on and stuff like that as well as Casey, pretty much anything I can get my hands on.
Where do you do your research? Like, what are the resources that you're using?
I don't know if a lot of people know, but the State Library of Victoria actually has the football record. Every edition of the football record, not every game, they've only got one per round, but they're all available on their website. So I did a trawl through every single one of those for everything Melbourne I could find. Pardon me, just coughing there. Trove, I don't know if a lot of people know Trove, which is the National Library of Australia archive, which is progressively adding a lot of newspapers. There is issues to where they can only add newspapers up until about 1950, mid-50s. But there's also a very well-hidden Google archive of age newspapers that goes up to 1990. So I've trawled that. I've read every sports section from 1965 to 1989 in there to trawl for the Melbourne content. I mean, this has all been going for years. Yeah. This is almost, I think it was either 2009 or 2010 that I started it. And like I said, it just goes up and down. Like sometimes in the last couple of months, I've been going bananas on it. Probably when the season starts, time squeezes. I've got that extra day that I've got to ditch my family and rush off to the MCG. So it probably involves a little less time then.
See, I always pictured, I didn't realise you were doing a lot of this digitally online. I imagined you going down to the library in some dark, dusty room and putting either gloves on and going through some old newspapers or, those microfiche machines and doing
that's
something.
My dream. If I could chuck my job and just go and sit in the State Library and just go through old newspapers all day, I would be extremely happy in life. So I have done a bit at the State Library. Not so much now because I live quite far away from the city, very much outer suburbs. But early in the piece, I lived in Richmond, South Bank, places like that when I was young and free and fabulous. Especially the 2 wooden spoon seasons where I lived 10 minutes from the MCG, which was great because I could go home and be miserable very quickly after the final siren. And I did spend a lot of time in the State Library in those years. Of course, again, now I'm married and have a kid and stuff like that and live away from the city. but it's certainly something I would like to get into again.
If you would if you'd like to donate to to the fund to help Adam quit his job, and
that'd be nice.
It is an amazing resource, though. Like it's as you say, it's never ending. You can spend hours on there. Yeah,
and it's down to the real minutiae now. Yep. Like we've got the main stuff is sort of. It's there. It's finding, names of players who trained in 1944 that I've only got a surname for, and then a different article will have their first name, and again there'll be a rush, a nerdly rush that goes through me whenever I find something like that, and no one will probably ever look at that page, but that's cool. I'm happy with that as long as it's there.
How far back does the footy record go?
I think it's 1912,
and how?
So it is the first, like the footy record in its entire streak is on there.
How detailed were they back in those days? They didn't have a crossword or a kids section, I assume.
No, sadly no. There was no Was it Star Trek? Or was that 90s cartoon?
Yeah.
Kid that they used to have in the footy record. Sadly not. It's sort of there's a lot of racist ads.
I'm sure.
I can tell you that. Right? Like once they start getting to the bit where they have got pictures like cartoons, some of it's a bit, you start to adjust your collar nervously a bit while you're reading it. It's there right from the start, and you hit the times where it's a Melbourne game that they've uploaded as the one for the round, and you see the reserves team, and you're like, bang, there's a new name I never had before. Here's a guy who wore number 12, and we don't have any other record of him. That was a fantastic resource. So I would say that anyone who hasn't checked that out, definitely jump on the State Library, even just Google State Library Victoria football record, and you will instantly be taken back to, unless you're older than 1912, you will instantly be taken back to your childhood looking at some of the stuff on there.
Yeah. And we're talking about inside football before the show. How far back does that go?
I think that's into the 70s. I haven't really had a great opportunity to have a crack at inside football. I did spend a couple of days at the MCC library probably 4 or 5 years ago now, and started going through from the 70s and 80s, and there was some great stuff in there. It's just unfortunate that they never got around to even digitising their back issues and selling them, or putting them up, adding them to their subscriptions or something like that. I'm not sure it would have saved their publication in the modern era, but it certainly would have been an amazing resource for armchair historians like me.
They would have 2 subscribers, you and the guy who runs Blueseum.
Yep. Well, it's better than nothing. Yeah. It probably wouldn't have cost, probably wouldn't have paid for the person to scan it all. But it's just making a time to get out to the MCC Museum or State Library, and because they've obviously got them all scanned as well. I'm hoping that potentially one day they might end up on Trove as well.
Have you had any contact with the club, the club? Have they helped you out or with anything?
They have been. Not in the last few years. In the very early times when they still employed a historian, Linda Carroll. She was very helpful. Yeah. She was very helpful with helping me with a lot of stuff in the setup. And then a few years ago, again, I just haven't got the time to do this anymore. They actually invited me in to come and to go through all the filing cabinets with photos.
Oh, wow.
Photos and documents and stuff like that, which was great. And I probably got 3/4 of the way through it. And then, like I said, that was probably 2013. And I've never had the opportunity or the time to be able to go back and do it again. But I found some amazing stuff in there. I found a copy of the merger agreement.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I made a scanning error that misses one of the pages, which I've been kicking myself ever since. And then there wasn't really a lot of documentation in there, but there was a lot from the early 80s, including a letter saying, we've pledged that all our players will have memberships, but what we're going to do is we'll take the money out of their wages for the membership, but we're going to give them this package of sponsors stuff that, will equal the amount they've spent on the memberships. And it was like, razors and like Kentucky Fried Chicken and things like that. So there's a few cool documents like that in there as well. But I'd like, again, I just don't have the time. I've got so much stuff lined up here, let alone outside. But I would just love to hit it all. And I know there's a lot of people around with scrapbooks and collections and things like that. I'm not sure I'll ever get around to everything, so that gives me something to obviously aim for the future.
Just remind people of your Twitter handle, because you certainly post a lot of material on social media too, and there's all kinds of again quirky stuff in there. I've seen you post ads for coaches going back many years ago. Tell people how they can keep up to date with some of the stuff that you find, because you do post quite a bit of it.
Yeah, well, when I'm working away, if I see something that's sort of weird or quirky, I put it up on Demonblog, at Demonblog. And we've also got a Facebook page, facebook.com/Demonblog or at Demonblog, however that works, which we post a few things on there as well. But mainly on the Twitter. It's just stuff that I know is gonna give people a laugh. There's been a bit of a running joke recently, all the articles hanging it on us for not having any fans. And it seems that the two constant things throughout the history of football from 1858, 1859 onwards is, one, people complaining that the game's not as good as it used to be, and two, mocking Melbourne for not having any fans. You just come into it by accident every time. I've got a list that I add. It's actually called "Football is not as good as it used to be." And every time I find one of those articles, I just add it to that list. Yeah.
Very good.
Well, it's funny you should say that about the Melbourne supporters and not having fans. Considering we don't have any fans, we've certainly got probably the most amount of dedicated podcasts. I think someone put a list on. There's like 5 or 6 out there. So, we've certainly got a passion.
We always have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, that's right.
We're at the top of the podcast ladder.
That's true. In terms of, do you know your stats of how much traffic you get to the site, of people sort of wanting to do those deep dives into Melbourne lore?
To be honest, I know this is contrary to everything they teach you about the internet, but I don't look at the stats for the blog or the wiki. I really just, it's kind of, I've often said about the blog, I do it for my own benefit. And if someone else likes it and wants to read it, then I'm happy for them to do that. But I do get a lot of nice, compliments from people, and even I've had players who are on the other players list, like old under-19s players, reserves players, writing in and giving me the life story. People giving me the life story of their parents who passed away, who weren't senior players. So that's always rewarding to get those contacts.
Well, have you ever considered like monetizing it, like not making people pay for the stuff, but putting ads on the side or anything like that?
There's an ad at the bottom of demonwiki, but there used to be an ad at the top. But every time I went on it, no matter what computer I went on, because I was accused by the technical guru behind the site of this being my own fault, but it always seemed to be about date mature Asian women and stuff like that. And I thought, oh, hold on, this is a do it if you want to, but I don't want people having this come up at work and things like that. So there is one now. It's just down the bottom of the page.
Well, I'll tell you that most of the time the ads that appear on sites are based on your previous search
and that's
history.
That's what my man said. And I said to him, no, I've done it in incognito mode. I've done it on my work computer. I've done it on my mobile. I said, I've opened myself to this accusation, but I know that I am pure.
No. But it's not just that. They sort of get a profile of you, so you might not search out those sites, but because they know you're a male, you're probably aged between 25 and 45, you like football, sports and whatever, put the Asian women dating ads on the site.
I hope someone finds love
through
my site. That's all I say.
That's your goal. I like that.
You also run the Demon Bracket competition, which is growing in popularity every year. And for those who don't know, is basically a popularity contest. Players go head-to-head. It's a knockout competition. And in the grand final, you're left with 2 players. People vote for who they like. Nev Jetta won this year. I think it was the greatest victory margin of all time. Is that right? Against Clayton Oliver?
It was a thumping victory over Clayton Oliver in the final. I don't think that was a reflection on Clayton. I think it was just a reflection on people. The it's time factor with Nev having put in so much effort over the years, and bouncing back from obviously the disappointment of being delisted to be one of our most important players. And I think, again, if you haven't read the blog before, you'll probably understand one of our running themes of Nev being left to take on multiple tall defenders on his own, and always doing a wholehearted job of it every time. And I think that's the kind of stuff that people recognise this time. I probably thought Oliver would get a few more votes than that, or the Hamburglar, as he's often known on Twitter, would get a few more votes than that. But I don't think I think making the final is probably a good sign of the respect the fans hold for him.
We spoke to Nev a couple of weeks ago. He was on the show, and we talked to him about it, and he had a bit of a giggle, and we think he probably had found out about it and knew that he'd won. So,
yeah, there's a Twitterist whose kids go to the same school as Nev's kids, so I wouldn't be surprised if he might have just dropped a word to him. But it was great. So that was the first time. It's probably the biggest boil over since the Tom McDonald 2012 or 2013, whenever it was, when he won it. Came from nowhere, built it on a campaign of social media sizzle to get through to the final and beat the now long departed Mitch Clark. There wasn't as much player sizzle this year. I'm not sure. It seemed to have slowed down last year and then died this year. So I don't know if it's just they've got more important things to do now that they're a half decent team, or it's kind of a conscious effort to not get involved in it. But if Nev's happy, I'm happy.
I'm just noticing on Demonwiki, you have a thing called top pages. Is that ranking the most popular pages on the site?
That is, but the numbers are questionable
because number
still
number 8.
Dallas Normington's
yes.
still 8.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's some Russian activity going on.
Yeah, there must be. Dallas Normington, 0 games, 0 goals, has probably one of the greatest names of a footballer. And I know you actually. Is it you that is quite keen on some of the names of players, particularly when they're draft age, and hoping that they find their way to the Ds?
Yeah, I was ropeable when we didn't select Freddie Clutterbuck that year when we had him training here. It was that was halfway through the season. It was like, hold on, there's a guy called Freddie Clutterbuck. Melbourne, you know what to do. And then the next thing, he's training with us, and I'm poised at the pre-season or the rookie draft when they used to just put it up in a chat window.
Yeah.
Like the text would come up as they draft people. I was just poised. And it was like Lee Williams. Great. Well, that's not Freddie Clutterbuck, is it? So I noticed that the top game is round 5, 2009.
Yeah, what is that game?
That's when we kicked 4-10-34 against Adelaide and had 1-6 at three-quarter time.
Yeah, yes.
And then we're almost back in the game in the last quarter. We kicked a couple of quick ones and almost got back in it. I think there's some weird scenarios going on with those top pages, but if you're into Dallas Normington chat, we've got you covered.
And I love the random image feature as well. I think that's quite special.
We got a heap of all the footy cards you'll see on there sent to us as links to the images, which was great. So that really helped boost the images. And then, it's just all the player pictures. I've got Chris Lamb up on my screen now and I can tell it's from 1998 Chris Lamb because it's got the border and the little demon in the corner that they used on the website that year for all the player photos. So I think I must have got that off like Web Archive or something like that. Actually, hold on, was Chris Lamb even there? And he wouldn't have even been there in 1980. I'm talking out of my hat. Anyway.
That's all right.
Apologies to Chris Lamb and his family.
That's what we do on this podcast. I think maybe we'll move on to our show tonight.
The future, a glorious future.
A glorious future.
Well, the season is upon us.
Yeah.
So
we are
time to get serious.
That's right. We're poised for good things. Hopefully. Now we talked about this last week that this week we would come and present you with our best 22. And I would love it if someone could call in later and give us your best 22. So don't call just yet. We'll just start our own. 039016 3666. I'll say that a bit slower so you can write it down. 039016 3666 or Demonland31 on Skype. Give us your best 22. Now, Great Viney, how should we start this? We were talking about it a bit before. Should we go line by line? What's the best way to do this?
Line by line.
Do you want to kick off proceedings with yours, and we'll see how...
Yep, I've got Jeddah, Omak, Hibbard.
All right.
Seconded.
Oh, well, there you go. We've got
seconded it in its entirety.
Third, so locked in. That is the back line. That was an easy one. And I probably reckon that the half-back line's going to be pretty much the same. What say you, Great Viney?
I've got Hunt, Lever, Lewis.
Oh, there you go. I had it the other way around. Lewis, Lever, Hunt, but we'll take that as a thing.
I've got Salem, Lever, Hunt.
Ooh. And do you have Lewis in the team at all?
Do.
Yeah, you do.
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
and I'm sort of thinking I was a bit iffy on Vince, but if McDonald's not going to play, not spoilers, I probably and it's going to rain. I'm probably going to get Vince back in there somewhere.
Wait, this is the best 22 with a full team.
Sorry, I was going for the best 22 for the weekend.
No, this is best 22 is that right, Great Viney? I don't think we discussed what the actual rules were.
For mine, if we're talking about Viney and McDonald only, so it's a pretty easy 2 come out and 2 come in, isn't it? So we can do it sort of either way.
Well, I
mean, Peterson's going to replace
could have had
McDonald.
Could have had Vandenberg in there. You never know. No, we'll say let's.
I'll give you my overall, and I'll let you know where that would differ on injuries.
Very
for
good.
This
week. Salem, you said on the half back was because I get the feeling they're going to play him a bit more attacking this year. I don't think they're going to do that. That's just my feeling based on. I think he's going to get more midfield time and possibly play on the wing. But
I think that's quite likely. But I think positions now it's all over the place. They'll start one way and then 10 minutes later they'll be another. So. Could go that way.
I think that's what's going to sort of be sort of have us standing out amongst other teams. That we're very flexible in that regard. That we can move people around. That's a good thing to have. Let's go the centre line. Great Viney, you want to start off?
Yep. Well, this is where, as Adam says, the midfielders you can slot them in anywhere, in any order.
Well, do you want to just do the wings and the midfield?
Well, I've got Jones, Salem and Harms across my centre line.
Jones, Salem, Harms. I've got, because I put all the guys in the midfield, but I'll have Jones as my centre. I got Brayshaw, Jones, Salem.
Yep.
And I'm just throwing magnets in the air and seeing where they land. I've got Tyson Oliver and Neil Bullen.
Yeah. And I must say, with my interchange bench, any of those players can slot into pretty much a midfield role as well. So, it's the magnets in the air. Half forward line?
Petrarca, Hogan, Hannon.
Oh, you got Hogan at centre half forward. Okay.
Yep.
I have a Melksham, McDonald, and Petrarca.
I've got Petrarca, Hogan, and Melksham.
Okay, so Hogan at centre half forward. All right.
I think that the JLT game where they were both in there sort of showed that McDonald's he's got that really great lead.
Yeah,
I think he was a forward before in his younger days. He's just got that great lead, whereas Hogan does a lot of really good work up the ground. So you could probably interchange them, but I'd probably rather. I'm always got a fetish for leads.
Yeah,
players just leading straight down the middle of the ground. So that's why I'll take Tommy right up the front.
Yeah, I think you've convinced me. I'm swapping. All right, full forward line. Great Viney, you.
I've got Melksham, Tommy, and Jeffy.
Yeah, now I'll have Tommy at full forward, but Jeff Garlett and who have I got there? Harms I've got down there.
And I've got Garlett, McDonald, Hannon, so just reversing Melksham and Hannon.
Now, I was tossing up whether I had Harms or Fritsch in there because I really like Fritsch and I want him to play even round one. And I don't have him on my bench. I don't have him in the team, but is one that sort of can certainly interchange.
Well, I think it's two of Fritsch A and B, and Harms will play, and one of them misses in the best 22. That is.
So who do you have on your interchange bench?
Well, for rucks, I've got Gorn, Clary, and Viney.
Yeah.
But then on the interchange, I've gone with Fritsch, Brayshaw, Vincent, Hyson. So Nibbler in my team is the one that misses out.
Really?
In round one. Yep.
Mm. And but who obviously?
I think it's a line ball call between him and Harms. I think Fritsch will be in ahead of them.
Yeah. And
the final call in a best 22 scenario is between Harms and Nibbler, and it's a very close call.
So Bernie Vince doesn't make it into your team.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, sorry. You got him on the bench.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I've got emergencies: Nibbler, Bug, Pedersen, and Maynard.
Yeah, well, that's the good thing I think about us is that we've got sort of 4 emergencies who could easily slot into that team.
So you don't have Fritsch in yours. What about you, Adam? How does the Harms, Nibbler, Fritsch scenario play out for you?
Well, I'm very pro Nibble, so I've locked him in the starting team.
Yes.
I've got Fritsch ahead of Harms. Yep. Overall, I do really like Harms, and I think that's a really good sign that we've got that depth that we're able to, push players like that, just leave them in the VFL for a couple of weeks until inevitably something goes wrong and they're required.
Yeah.
I've also got Brayshaw and Pedersen on the bench as well. I do have in the one I put on the blog where I factored in Viney being out, I put Maynard in.
Yeah.
So I'd obviously bring Viney back in for Maynard and start him in the 18.
So if Pedersen's in your starting 22, who misses then?
Well, I've gone for Hogan and McDonald and Pedersen,
really?
Which is probably a touch scandalous, and maybe based entirely on that day where we beat Brisbane unconvincingly. I think McDonald might have been sent back down that day actually. Look, it's going to be conditions. You're not going to play that if it's anyway wet. But I guess I just like Pedersen and just want to support him. I just feel like he needs he's riding a wave of popularity at the moment that would have been unforeseen 5 years ago. But I just feel like he still needs to be kept in the conversation.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, and I think what's good is I think on every line, with the exception of the ruck, we've got guys who wouldn't make the best 22 at the moment, but can easily slot in if we've got injuries on any of those lines. And I think our ruck is the only position which we can't really replace with another ruckman. We can put Tommy into the ruck, but then we take away from the forward, or Pedersen goes in. But it's really the only position that we can't cover an injury for.
And I think that's where footy's going now. That you're going to have that specialised one ruck, and it's just got to be. Eventually, you've got to find a forward who is a real ruckman at the same time. But I think for now, we showed last year when Gawn was out, we didn't play too badly without him. I thought Tommy did a great job in the ruck, because he would often not win the tap, but the next thing he'd be trying to tackle someone 2 seconds later. So if you get that player who's big enough to make a contest, but also has the desire to get into it in the middle, I think you can almost get away with it. You just miss those beautiful fancy taps out the back that you get from Gawn.
Yeah, you just got to then also learn to play off the other ruckman as well. My biggest worry in our midfield is opposition teams sharking off Gawn. I think that's started to happen.
There's got to be ways to combat that, I would have thought. So, yeah.
Yes.
If you go back to the All-Australian season, 2016, Jones and Viney were getting an absolute ride from Gawn every week, and we need to get back to how it was in that season, because in terms of sort of tapping to advantage that year, it was sensational.
Yeah, he certainly was. Adam, you still with us?
Yes, absolutely.
I thought we might have lost you for a moment.
No, all good.
All good. All right, well, there's our best 22. If anyone wants to call in and give their best 22, we'd love to hear it out. 039016 3666 or Demonland31 on Skype. We'll take your call. Well, that's our best 22, and obviously there are two players who are not going to make that team. Viney, definitely out. Have they called Tom McDonald as a definite out?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's been all right. So
I'm really glad we won
two.
that. We won that Lincraft title in AFLX. Straight out of the Lincraft shop trophy. Because I really hope they didn't have an inkling that McDonald had an injury when they played him in that game.
Yeah, well, someone made the point that they're supposedly conservative, and Sati says online that the rule now at the club is if you feel anything, you have to go straight into rehab. But it does raise questions what happened with McDonald, either when he reported it or how much notice they took of it.
But don't you think that would be a rule just in general for footy clubs that as soon as you niggle, it's not like medicine was just invented.
It's not like he's a fringe player. Like he could understand someone who is fighting for their career might drag themselves off their deathbed to play because they think if they get dropped, they'll never be seen again. But he's played every game for about the last 4 years, and now, of course, just as he's about to become the next big thing in forward play, he gets injured.
Are you guys? We'll talk about Viney in a minute. Are we worried about considering what's happened with Viney and him sort of every few weeks it gets pushed back and pushed back? Are we worried the same thing's going to happen to Tom McDonald?
No,
I think it sounds like McDonald is they're just being conservative, but they could probably push it and he could play. So they're just trying to make sure it doesn't get worse.
Yeah.
Lest we forget, we've got a game against North in round 3.
Yes,
that's very important to win. Forget round 2.
That's right.
We must beat North.
Yeah. Well, so we've got Viney's foot. Is it getting worse? What's the story here? Like, are we being told everything? Do they know everything? It just seems every week it's getting pushed further and further back, and it doesn't look like he'll be playing.
Well, he's partly explained that in that he got to a point where he was sort of almost ready to go, and he wore boots at training and didn't pull up well from that. And since then, he's had a couple of sort of sore spots, which seem to be fixing themselves, but then another one pops up. So that was my reading of what came out today. But there's no doubt the timeline's been pushed back from, returning just after Christmas or returning at Christmas to possibly playing in the JLT to probably playing in round 1 to the point where we're at now where it's unlikely he'll be available before round 4 at the earliest.
Yeah, there was certainly talk at one point about him playing in that VFL practice match as well.
Yep.
I'm not sure if that was legitimate talk or just internet speculation, but yeah, it does seem to be sliding back. It doesn't have a Mitch Clark vibe about it, that it's just going to never get better again. But obviously, this start of the season is so important for us. Not to curse it, but we have got probably the first game is the least winnable of the first 4, but even then, it's eminently winnable. It's just going to be a real shame if we can't get him out there for the first 4 weeks.
Yeah, 100%. I'd love. I feel we're a much better team with him in it, and you got a guy who gives it 150%.
It's just that question of mental toughness, isn't it? Which the media has been questioning us about, and I don't think it begins and ends with Viney. We've got plenty of resilient and mentally tough players now, but he's the leader on that front, so we need him beyond just his footy skills.
Now, is there any worry? We had a few other guys in rehab in the last few weeks. We've had Clary with a knee knock that he sustained in JLT 2, but he's been in the rehab group ever since. A and B's pretty much been in the rehab group since JLT 1. I'm not sure if he has returned to the full training yet, and as Jordan Lewis was also in that group too. So are we worried any of those three will miss?
Lewis said on AFL 360 last night that he's definitely playing.
Yep.
So he's not an issue. And given that we had the update, the bad news on McDonald and Viney today, I would have thought if Clayton Oliver was also bad news, we would have learned about it today too. So apparently he's tracking well, but still needs to pass one final fitness test, which I presume would be tomorrow, wouldn't it? Or perhaps they do a light session on Friday. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the training times. Brayshaw as well. He didn't appear at training on Monday, and the media was there and jumped on it. I'm not sure if it was someone from Demonland. I think Steve the Man Jordan was at training. I'm not sure whether it was him who started off that rumour, which turned out not to be a rumour, but some of the media jumped onto it. Was found out later that he had his wisdom teeth taken out in the chair as well.
That is so Melbourne.
It is. So I'm not sure.
So Melbourne.
It'll be even more Melbourne if it turns into root canal work in another few weeks.
No,
the recovery doesn't go
lucky
well.
the dentist didn't accidentally drop his knee into Gus's head or something while he was really trying to wrench out the last wisdom tooth.
Yeah, no, it'll be Melbourne, very Melbourne if he continues to have problems throughout the years for sure.
The club said that he'll be fine.
I can just see a scenario where the wisdom teeth grow back and he has to have them taken out later in the year.
I'd like to see him come with the full mask, not just the helmet, but something along the jawline as well, the Lucha Libre style,
the Hannibal Lecter look.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd dismiss some of these weak claims about the camp.
Yeah.
Well, we're the only club in the league where foot problems are contagious.
Yes.
Well, that's like toe injuries.
Be the case with
remember Sam Frost a few years ago? He had a toe injury in about round 4 and he was never seen again.
Yeah, I'm surprised we've seen him since because he just disappeared off the face of the earth that year. And I just wish that our players could drink whatever Patrick Dangerfield is drinking because they're not letting up, and maybe they're just foxing us. But if you go by their thing, he's going to play this week. But
I don't think our players want to drink Patrick Dangerfield's bathwater.
I think he drinks, but he deserves all the praise that he gets. He's a very good footballer. But it sounds like he's going to play. But I've spoken to a Geelong supporter who is a physio as well, and he reckons there's no way they could risk playing him with the injury that he sustained. But it sounds
it's a bit
like
bold in round 1.
Yeah,
it's a bit risky in round 1 to do that. So put your feet up, Paddy. let Gaz do all the work.
Yeah, and if he does play and Gaz plays, I hope it's raining and wet and they've got to run in a slop.
There's no way Dangerfield will play. That's just foxing.
Yep.
Yeah, they might pick him because it's a Sunday game and they can pick anyone.
Whether he's playing or not, he's being picked.
Yeah.
100%. There's no doubt about that. They're not going to come out and say he's not playing. They're picking.
I noticed there was a tweet earlier about Gary Ablett's been promised that he will start in the centre, which is not great for us, but I did have some horrible flashbacks to that Gold Coast round 1 game a few years ago where we won, but Viney tormented him all day and then he went forward half injured, kicked a couple of goals and just looked like he was going to win them the game one-armed. I sort of had this phobia about him going forward and kicking 6 or something, so could still happen.
And Dangerfield could play in the forward line on one leg and kick
Correct.
6 as well. So
and we all know what Tom Hawkins just does to us that he doesn't do to about 15 other clubs every time we play them.
And those with a good memory will remember back in the very early 90s, or perhaps it was late 80s, a game against Hawthorn out at Waverley, where Dunstall and Brereton both went off injured early. Gary Ayres then got injured and went down to full forward and kicked 4 or 5 goals, literally on one leg. And the Hawks won, so,
There's a precedent.
Yeah.
Yes.
We've got a caller on the line. Hello, you are on the air with the Demonland podcast. Hi.
Hello, this is Don't Make Me Angry. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Don't make me angry. What's up? What would you like to say?
You're just talking. I'm thinking about Dangerfield. I hope he does play this weekend. And if it's a bit wet, wouldn't it be good about the first quarter? He does his hammy, and then Ablett does his hammy in the second quarter, and they're two blokes down by half time. And we know that Geelong have got absolutely no depth, and their best two players out of their three, only three players have got her out by half time, and we romped by 100 points. So it'll be happy days.
Well, I would never want to wish harm on any individual, but it couldn't happen to a better team. Let me just say that. Play them. I'm not scared. Yes.
Well, they've certainly have to get some attention in the first quarter, and in a completely legal way. We really need to go out there and be physical in that first quarter to start putting this camp chat rubbish out off the agenda.
And round 23, the tackle count and all that.
Exactly. It would be nice to have more than 0 tackles in the first 10 minutes on Sunday.
It certainly would. Don't make me angry. Anything else you want to say?
Oh, this Camp Fiasco thing, that's one of the things that's really making me angry. And, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And I think for as many media people pumping up the Demons to do really good things, there's just as many trying to bring us down by. And the ones that bring us down, the only thing they can come up with is, they didn't go on this camp, so they're mentally weak. The ones that pumping us up, give good analysis, the list is this and this and that and that. And the ones that putting us down, the only thing they can say is, oh, no, but they didn't go on this camp. So they're still mentally weak and they're not going to make the finals. You guys get that too?
It's an easy line to throw out there to counter any good things, that we do. And we're going to hear it all year. Anytime we have a bad loss or we just, that's going to come up as the reason why. And unless we put the runs on the board, we're going to keep hearing that. But I did like, because last week there was a lot of pumping us up, a lot of people saying top 4 and, knowing Melbourne, we never do well when we're favourites. Adam, you'd know
Correct.
that. So this was maybe a good thing to just bring us back to earth this week. I don't want too many people pumping up our tyres before the start of the year. We're not going to do too good, bottom 4, using reverse psychology at the moment. I'm all for reverse psychology.
The funny thing about this article, it seems it's odd that it's come out at this time of the year, because we've had a pre-season that, I don't know about you guys, but I think I've never seen such a lower quality of journalism almost, of just so many just landfill stories, and all this stuff with the AFL speculation, and we're going to re-record theme songs and AFLX, and we're going to play games in China and India. It's almost just a concerted effort just to get footy in the paper 365 days a year, and it just doesn't matter what the topic is, just as long as footy's in the paper, and it's really leading to some just complete slop. I honestly, I can't say I don't even read the papers anymore. I'll flick through them at work, and maybe there's something in there that's interesting, but in general, this week it'll start to get better because they'll actually have footy to talk about, but off season it's just garbage in the papers. And just not just the papers, online as well, and this whole 24/7 news cycle, and reporters have to. It seems like they have to have 15 news articles a day that they have to bring out, and then you start getting crap about, so you just get complete rubbish. Like, it's just, you got to really know where. Know where you get your news from, I think, rather than just take every article written by every work experience kid in every website as gospel.
Having said that, I do post every single article about Melbourne on the site for discussion, and I make no apologies about that.
Well, you're single-handedly propping up the Australian journalism industry.
Thank you.
Driving clicks.
Well, look, I put it on Demonland because we are a site that discusses the Demons and their articles about the Demons, and I make no apologies for putting it up there for all of us to talk about. And no one has to click on a link. No one's forcing anyone. But so if you don't like the topic, don't click. But
and that's
I'll
the
put
thing.
it up there.
If you don't like an outlet, don't read their stories.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Like you can complain about the Herald Sun or the Age, or people complain about Caroline Wilson. Don't click the link. It's a whole lot easier to not read what you don't want to read. Sometimes you want to get the opposing views, but if something angers you that much, just take a breath and step away, which is pretty much me and the AFL website. Don't even bother, because it's just propaganda from head office.
It is.
According to Sir Y.U. Little, Dave Misson said today that Oliver will be fine for Sunday, so that's great news.
Which means he won't be playing.
Yeah. Well,
there's still time for him to suffer a mystery injury of some variety.
Well, according to Whispering Jack, there is a mystery injury every single week, so someone must come up. Don't make me angry. Is there anything else you want to say?
Your man there, Mercado's a historian. I'll just put this one thing. Anytime that Melbourne's over the history of had success, it's always been overnight success. Like even from the beginning, like in 25, and when they won the premiership in 26 and 20 in 2024, they were bottom three on the ladder, and then 3 years later, they're winning in the premiership. And I think Melbourne have always had this history of coming overnight success and then being a powerhouse. Even in and even 87, that came from the that was an overnight success too, that we became a good team. And that was about the same time that I was following Hawthorn in 87, and when they lost the grand final that year, I said, I'm not going for them anymore because they let me down. And then I decided to go for Melbourne, and then they lost to Hawthorn the next year. So,
I feel your pain. That grand final has scarred us both.
Anyway, that's enough for me, so I bid you good night.
Good night. Thank you for calling. We really do appreciate it. All right. That was Don't Make Me Angry. I won't. So they say that there is rain forecast for Sunday. There are conflicting reports. People are all giving their Bureau of Meteorology links, but it may be a little wet early on in the day. I'm not sure what the afternoon holds, but from a footy perspective, I don't really care whether it rains. I've always been of the opinion you've got to beat anyone, anytime, anywhere. If it rains, they're going to suffer from it too. But where I really don't want it raining is for the crowd, one, because we want to get all those people coming to see the prodigal son returning and putting bums on seats and through the turnstiles, and as well, membership-wise. You want people to be able to line up for their memberships on day one.
It's interesting with the crowd, because I would have thought that we'll get at least 60, and I actually thought probably 65 plus, and heading towards 70. But I'm just on the MCC
what do they say?
Website at the moment, and they're usually pretty spot on. And they say the expected crowd is 51,000, which is well short of what I'd be hoping for.
That might be factoring in the forecast as well.
Yeah, but I think it also, I think they use MCC passes and, guest tickets as an indicator. But as I said previously, they've always been around the mark. So I hope I hope they're wrong this time.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No, I was just I've had a look at the latest bomb forecast, and it's a shower or two late afternoon and evening, 0 to 4 millimetres. So it doesn't look like it's going to be that damaging. Probably if it did rain a bit better than that, it probably would help cover the loss of McDonald a bit more. But I don't think that's much to worry about. No. Surely we'll be 11 or 12 goals up by that time.
The only time that the weather puts people off is when they wake up first thing in the morning. It's a freezing cold day probably, and it's miserable outside, and you can tell that it's going to rain most of the day. If you wake up and it's an overcast day, people go to the footy even if there is the possibility of a shower or two. It's really only on those horrible
the round
days
one
that
bounce is significant as well.
Yeah, exactly. So Get there, Demon fans.
Yeah, I'll
just don't sit anywhere near me.
Whereabouts do you sit? Yeah,
I have been loyal to row of the Ponsford stand, which is the very very back row of the Ponsford stand. But in my anxiety at quarter time of round 23 last year, I actually shifted around to of the Olympic stand and was quite taken by that. So I might do that this year.
So are you saying you sit right up the top level, right at the back?
Territory.
Last row.
Do you bring binoculars to the game? Because I've never been able to see
I will. I'll back that view against any other view. I know you can see exactly what's going on, and you get a great view of what's going on off the ball as well. But I don't want to talk it up too much because the main reason I'm going up there is not for the visuals. The main reason is to be away from people so I can carry on and be antisocial and not have it bring anyone else's day down.
Aren't you sitting in enemy territory then most weeks, effectively?
Yeah, but the enemy's always about 25 rows away, so it's never too bad. The only problem is you get the tourist people, and I say not real tourists, but the people who just want to climb the stairs at half time and quarter time. They just love coming up the stairs and sit there for about 5 minutes, and then, they realise that they think it's terrible and they chuff off back to their normal seat again. But, you very rarely, I think once Queen's birthday, I just randomly ended up back there and I was surrounded by Collingwood fans. But other than that, you get a great experience of not having to deal with opposition fans.
Nice.
Are there any surprises? Oh, we didn't really discuss. We sort of discussed ins and out. Obviously, Viney and McDonald aren't in, and probably Peterson will definitely replace. Will be in for T-Mac. Any other surprises? We all pretty much think Bailey's going to get a game first up. Anyone else?
I couldn't see any other surprises given who we played in the practice games.
Yeah, they didn't play any of those young kids. So, were you Adam? Were you surprised we didn't play any of the those young kids and give them a first taste, or sort of happy with the way they're going and we're playing best sort of 22?
I think when you only have 2 games, you don't have that ability as much to do that. But for the last few years, we have pretty much gone hell for leather right through the pre-season. Which maybe that's got something to do with the reason we've slid at the end of seasons the last 3 years. But at the same time, I guess they're probably looking at getting the early wins to get the confidence up as being really important. But probably the last 3 or 4 years, coincidentally, when we've won a lot of pre-season games, I think they've really tried to play close enough to best 22. Probably, AFLX, I just reject that as a concept entirely. So I don't care that we won it. I probably would have just played a team of seven rookies who'd never played a game in their life and given them a taste that way, at least of playing in front of a crowd. But if you've only got 2 practice games to deal with, you may as well just play the best side. I think next year they might look at that and bring back a 3rd practice game.
Having said that about AFLX, it does appear that we did go out to win it because we had all those, we had a few of those young kids named in the team or in the squad, and none of them got a game. So we were playing our best 8.
And we had Tom running around on a thinly veiled car park. Blowing his toe to pieces. But hey, we won.
Yes, we did.
That might be the only competition I ever see the Melbourne Football Club win in my life. So I did. I boycotted it all the way to the grand final and then turned that on because I did think that what if you never see Melbourne win anything else in your life? You may as well see them win a plastic kick and clap competition.
Didn't you celebrate our 1989 World Series victory over Geelong in Toronto? Because I look back on that time very fondly.
I think Dallas Normington might have been involved.
Probably, yeah.
What I was going to ask you, if you follow on Facebook, there's a page, AFL VFL 20th Century something.
Yep.
Yes, and they have some great videos and old photos and stuff, so... Yeah, you're obviously across that. So
yeah, no, it's a really good site.
They've been posting a lot of games from sort of the early to mid-90s at the moment. And they actually had, which I've never seen before, they had... we've got a special caller here, but I can't take his call because it's going to kick going to kick you off, Supermercado.
Is it Chris from Camberwell? I'm happy to go if it's Chris from
No.
Jakovic?
It is a Jack, but it's a whispering Jack, and I know he's calling to speak to you, Adam. So what I might do is I might call him through my other Skype. Now, this because he might not be calling me for this reason. He could be calling up to yell at me for something. So let's roll the dice, and let's see. Let's say his number as I'm dialing it.
While you're dialing that, I was going to say I think this is the longest I've been on a footy show since I was hanging on the line on Viney's final siren for about an hour to defend Brad Green one night. That night we beat Essendon in 2011, and Dean Bailey punched the roof of the box and it looked like it broke, but it was actually water flying off it.
Yes.
I had a great hour on hold waiting to get on that Viney's final siren that night.
No more, Viney.
I think that's the key loss. I'm not sure the ratings cover 11 o'clock on a Friday night, but spiritually that's the key loss to SEN. Assuming Chris from Camberwell is still calling him.
He had on guys like Jeff Poulter, who also has got a sort of a wonderful grip on the game's history, going back many decades.
I don't think Whispering Jack was actually calling about the podcast, because he sent me a text message asking me for a credit card number. So
give it out.
Yeah. So if you're listening, no, we won't do that. He's not calling in. Where were we? Yes. Anything else, boys? Anything else that's come up during the week that you want to get the word out there about? Oh, there was one thing. Sorry to interrupt. We did have a good prediction come in today. Anthony Hudson came out with a few little predictions. Did either of you see this today?
No, but I quite like Hutto, so I hope he aligns with my predictions.
Well, you're going to like what he had to say, because his premiers were the D's, Fife for the Brownlow, Danaher for the Coleman, North Melbourne for the Spoon. I like that one. His big call for the year, the D's to win 8 of the first 9.
Oh, settle down.
Yeah, so we like the good predictions.
Yeah, I like it. Couldn't we win the last 18 or something? Come back from the dead and win the last 18. I noticed Kane Corns, the man who slagged off statistics the other day, he also predicted us to win the flag. So we're living in a new era, gents.
Yes, I don't think in living memory of it, has anyone ever predicted us. Or my living memory predicted us for a flag. So, there was never a year where we would have been favourites to take it out from the beginning of the year. So, yeah, I'll take that.
Absolutely. Let's go with it.
Yep, let's go with it. Let's get on the bandwagon. All right, I'm going to be at the game this week. I assume the two of you are, and this is one I really want to win. But my biggest fear, and this is my MFC SS is creeping in, is that we'll win this game and lose next week again, lose the week after,
and then we play North.
Yeah.
So 1 and 2. Well, McClure, what's his name? Mark McClure on Fox on Fox, the old Carlton player.
Yep.
He tipped Brisbane to make the 8.
Wow.
I saw tonight, so maybe we will fall victim to them.
Well, I don't think...
I'm not... I think we should win that, but I wouldn't pencil that in as an automatic win. I would, the years of drama aside, consider that we should beat North. But yeah, I don't think Brisbane, I wouldn't say they're going to make the 8, but I think they'll be extremely competitive this year.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're going to be... I don't think they'll be bottom 4 at all. I don't know whether they'll push for 8, but I don't think they're going to be pushovers. They've got a young, talented list, and funny things can happen in footy. So
is Sam McClure related to Mark McClure? He's the other one that's in the media.
I don't think he'd admit it if you were. You should come under an assumed name.
You're probably right there. Yeah.
So before we go out, Adam, do you want to plug your Twitter and the book again?
Absolutely. I'll run through the entire catalogue of plugs. We've got at Demonblog on Twitter and Facebook, and you can pick up a copy of the book or just read the general shenanigans at demonblog.com or demonwiki.org. And
you're also what is it, every Sunday?
Oh yeah, every day is like Sunday.
Yeah,
that was the original name of the blog that still lives from when we seem to play every single game on Sunday. But yes, it's obviously just referred to as Demonblog now.
Yes. No, I always loved that name, but wasn't exactly sure why it was called that, and now it makes perfect sense.
Yes, that was, and I was also going through like an early 20s miserable Morrissey phase, so that was kind of the reason probably why that got picked.
Nice. Great, Viney, you've got anything you want to plug? Do you have a book coming out?
No. No.
Okay.
I've contributed to a book that's coming out in a couple of months, but that's a bit of a different story.
It doesn't have anything to do with footy?
No, it's a sports book, but it's not. My contribution wasn't footy related. No.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I've got nothing. So join us back here next week, and we'll discuss hopefully a victory. And thank you to my co-host, Great Viney, and thank you to Adam Supermercado at Demonland. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Cheerio and go D's.
Yes, go those Demons. All right.
Come on, D's.
Come on, D's. We'll be back next week, and enjoy the footy. Go D's.